It just seems to come with the territory. If you're a politician and you're in charge of a country, you're there to be, and cartoonists will be shameless. We'll just do it anyway, whether or not they're being wonderful doesn't matter. We'll have a go at them. I don't know if Greg gets this. I certainly get some complaints from particularly no-voting friends of mine. They're sitting there, so when are you going to take the piss out of salmon or sturgeon?
Yeah.
I haven't even drawn the only cartoon I've done of sturgeon wasn't really a cartoon as such. It was an illustration of her where I had her as the Statue of Liberty. And as I said at the time, I was worried about that because it was a bit sooky. But it was the theme of the week. She had that trip to the States, and it seemed to go extremely well.
So, but how do you answer that question then? When are you going to start satirising the Nats?
The answer to that is that I don't think it would get on Wings.
Yeah,
because Wings makes no pretense to being a balanced newspaper. It's there to provide balance. It's part of a whole online new media world that sprung up through the Yes campaign, which was avowedly pro-independence news organisations or magazines or whatever it was, to provide the balance because the mainstream media was almost universally anti. So for me to start knocking the SNP would look a bit bizarre on Wings.
So yeah, but that's why when people ask me that when you're going to start making fun of the nationalists, I say, well, you don't need me for that. You've got the entire mainstream media to do it.
So it's providing a corrective.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, speaking personally, I would love I'd love to if it would have a yes vote, but to have a new media landscape in Scotland where you had a genuine plurality. Hey, I managed to say that word for once without sounding like an idiot. Of newspapers and TV and radio, and it was I'd happily work. I mean, I'm a journalist by training, so I'm very uncomfortable not sitting on a fence. That's where I'm at my happiest. And it's been very strange over the last 2 years to be very decidedly on one side of an argument. I can quite happily have a go at the nationalists, and in particular in this world that we're in, where they've got an almost monopoly of popularity and indeed elected representatives up here. There's a need for it, but we're still faced with that monolithic mainstream media that's avowedly anti-nationalist, anti-SNP, pro-union, pro-Westminster. So it just doesn't sit right to be thinking now's the time where I can have a pop at them.
Also, a lot of us would actually like it if, say, the Labour Party were providing an effective opposition. I mean, part of our frustration right now is the fact that these people are so utterly inept. That's playing into our hands as cartoonists. But, there would be quite a lot to be said for these guys actually being effective and, helping the country.
There seems little prospect of that, where they're still running around saying SNP bad, and everything's their fault. Even the loss of the election was their fault. And they don't seem to have learned the lessons from it.
Yeah.
No. Yes and no.
I would like it if they'd have learned just one lesson from any of the disasters that have befallen them. But no, they appear to still, they still want to carry on these tactics. They think that going to the Daily Mail with lists of apparently appalling cybernat behaviour is the way to win voters back. It's just bizarre.
Yeah. And you mentioned that in the face of this avowedly pro-union media, the question on this podcast, because we're doing a corrective, we give the chance to come on and explain why they support Scottish independence. It's unaligned. This podcast does not have anything to do with any party at all. So I'll start with Greg with this one. Why is it that you support Scottish independence?
I mean, it sounds like such an obvious and easy question. It's it's how to get back to why you're doing this. I mean, I've been pro-independence since I think Neil Kinnock. I mean, you can see the way that the Westminster parties are going. There's a definite divergence of politics between it's wherever you want to say that where the divergence begins. I don't know, but we're just different. We want to do things different, and the idea that Westminster can do things better than we can up here, that they can make Scotland better than we could. I mean, it's been proven that that's not the case. It's so very obvious to me that we could be making a far better job of this if we were independent.
Because there's different things in play. Like what you're talking about there is governance. Now, some people, when I ask the same question, some people give an idea about governance like you have. Some people give an economic idea, which I suppose ties in with governance. And then there's also a cultural element to it as well. And it's very hard to explain all of these things. You could even add in a historical element to it as well. There's so many things in play. It's a hard question to answer. I understand that. But Chris, what about yourself? I've just made it 10 times more difficult for you, but what about yourself?
Well, I like the shortbread. Greg was thinking since back to Neil Kinnock. I just sort of think of my age when I first started thinking for myself politically. Well, I tell you, just recently I was reminded of a period in my life back. I went to Glasgow University, and culturally, where I come from, which is the East End of Glasgow, you are, and if you're Catholic, you're a Celtic supporter and you're a Labour voter, just like you drink water and breathe air. I mean, that's it. And I went to Glasgow University and I used to do debating and stuff at school and at university, and went into the Glasgow University Union, and of course, along with everybody else that was there, I went straight into the Distributors Club, which is the University Union Labour Club. And it was Charles Kennedy who was there, who I was a year ahead of me, and he became a bit of a mentor and helped me through the first year of doing the parliamentary debates there. And just after that, the SDB started up and he went off and joined that. But part of the reason I kind of fell out of the whole debating thing, apart from the fact that I was doing geography and fine art, and I ran out of things to say quite quickly, whereas everybody else was doing economics and politics, and they could at least sound like they knew what they were talking about. It was that it exposed me to proper grown-up politics in a way at university, and I began to think, I'm not necessarily... See that, the wee Nat who's sitting there on his own on the other side of I actually agree with him. It was then when I first started to really think for myself politically, I thought, yeah, why not? Why shouldn't Scotland run it? Once you accept that Scotland is a nation, then you go, right, okay, and it should nations have self-determination? That's a good thing? Yes. So what's unique about Scotland? Why shouldn't we? And then you get all it's economically basket case, and there's you wouldn't be, then you get into the too wee, too poor, too stupid stuff, and that we've effectively chucked out over the last couple of years of the campaign. But I've always sort of felt it in my bones and my water for decades beforehand.
And also, one big reason just to be independent is Michael Gove.
Well, yes. I
personally would have said Jeff Hoon.
Right, okay. I've now got to come up with something.
No, that was a long time ago, but I had the misfortune to actually meet him, which is why it sort of stuck in my craw, that one.
Okay.
But there we go. But so where do you think we are now, Greg, in the sense that we've just had the election, it's been a massive SNP majority, we're coming up for Scottish Parliament elections, but aside from the electoral cycle, where do you think we are on our progress to independence at the moment?
I wouldn't like to put a prediction on it, but I'll give it 2 years.
You think that quickly?
The way things are going, it's just getting sillier and sillier, and I think that something's going to happen that will make it just so blatant that Westminster does not have our interests at heart, that it'll just become really obvious, and I don't think we're even going to have to push too hard at it. I think Westminster are going to carry on doing their own thing, and we're just going to end up being utterly alienated.
Do you think there's a real danger? It's something that other guests have mentioned, and there's a lot of talk about it, that, losing one referendum was bad, but to lose a second referendum would be fatal. It'd put us back 30 years if we do one too soon.
Well, I agree with that, but I also don't think the Scottish Government are daft enough to hold another referendum unless they can be absolutely sure they're going to win it. And what Greg's talking about, I imagine, is that this reality is happening beyond elections. It's there in the poll ratings. We're seeing it. The Scottish population are just scunnered and saying, look, let's get the hell out of here. My own personal thing is that I don't think that they should be thinking about another referendum until such times as they've got the currency issue sorted out, because much and all as we hated and fought against the whole stupid Plan B stuff and the whole bluff and counter bluff and we'll never know. It's now unfortunately not a situation where we can get to call that particular bluff. It was nevertheless an issue. It would crop up again. It would be the same old stuff, and I just think that until such times as they come up with a more convincing answer on that, whether it's the pound or whether it's a Scottish pound or whether, God, where are we just now with Greece at the moment? I have no idea if the euro is even going to exist. I think until that is absolutely nailed, then I don't think, and I think even just the amount of, if they're going to change, if they were thinking of changing that, again, they would have to leave a certain amount of time, because otherwise they'd just be open to the, wait a minute, you've changed your tune. You spent 2 years arguing for X, and now you're saying Y. I think it's just about being clever about how to. We know what they've got. We know what their arguments are going to be now. So I think it would be stupid to launch into anything until such times as we know we're going to have an effective counter to every single argument.
Well, we didn't have an effective counter to the fact, to the statement that Scottish independence would lead to more risk of alien invasion. That was one of them. We were also told that it would be a provocation of God by the Wee Free Church. We don't have time to refute every single ludicrous argument they come up with, but we have refuted a large part of them.
That's right, and there is a never-ending supply of these. So, I think that's absolutely right. The idea that we're going to nail everything in advance is kind of, probably unrealistic.
I would agree, though. I agree with Greg. We were talking about this earlier on. If you look at, it's almost that general election result didn't happen. You're looking at the behaviour of, the Tories are being the Tories. They haven't changed. In fact, worse, they're just doing a talk to the hand. We're getting nowhere with them at all. Labour haven't learned any lessons. They're still bleating about. You listen to Labour backbenchers in Westminster still blaming the SM, arithmetically illiterate, if that's a thing to be, are blaming the SNP for them not being in power. It's as if it just didn't happen. Sometimes I have to sort of have a reality check and remember the most astonishing result in Scottish electoral history was only a few weeks ago, because the main players, the ones that are left anyway, are still behaving in exactly the same way. It's almost as if are they believing it, that this was some kind of aberration and that the Scottish people are going to eventually see sense and come back to the fold? I don't know.
It seems they've been waiting for that for a long time, but some of the vox pops they were doing on Channel 4 just before the election were kind of amazing. I'd never seen anything like it. They were going around and trying to give people Labour leaflets to see what would happen. People were saying, I'm not touching that. Which, in the East End of Glasgow, which just seemed remarkable.
Yeah, Ian McWhirter was saying the other day that we haven't really begun to really drill down and work out all the implications of this. I think there's still an element, I know it's a month away or a month past, but there's still an element of people sort of a bit dazed, and they really don't know what the future is going to hold, other than what appears to have been happening, certainly over the Scotland bill, which is Scotland's political voice says one thing, and a tiny handful of unrepresentative jocks on the other hand say no, and that's it, and you're stuffed. Undemocratic is one word for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So to bring us round to where we started and to finish up,